right. Good afternoon, everybody. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Sustainable Together Talks, hosted by the Goethe Institute. We are in the second hybrid talk of the 2004 Sustainable Together series. And this session's topic is going to talk about the creative culture, but also how we scale circular solutions. The topics that we're going to be unpacking speak to the creative sector, but both how the commercial and local economies can work together in fostering a circular economy. We're going to be talking about large-scale organizations, local communities, how they collaborate together. And I think grounded by the So Creative Summit, it's important to have creatives in the room, but also multinationals and organizations that can tap into the work that's being done and some of the synergies in the creative sector. I'm joined by esteemed panelists, Morongwe Mokona, aka Mo. She is the creative director at Mo's Crib. Mo assumes a pivotal role in shaping the artistic vision and design aesthetics of the company's products. Her hands-on approach extends to spearheading production with artisans, ensuring that the crafted items align with her creative vision. In parallel, Mo's Crib has expanded its products into North America and the rest of the African continent, whilst locally in South Africa, there's a strong focus on working alongside local artisans and the commitment to sustainability in design and vision. Welcome, Mo.
Thank you so much for having me.
And then online, we've got Jackie May. Jackie May is the director, founder, and editor of Twig, a magazine focused on storytelling, content production, and networking to champion kinder, fairer, inclusive, and diverse, as well as nature-friendly futures. Jackie has 30 years experience in the media industry, holds 2 master's degrees, one in philosophy and one in sustainable development. Twig hosts the annual Twig Sustainable Fashion Awards to celebrate designers using circular and sustainable practices. She also hosts regular clothing swap and mend events and the annual Africa Textile Talks, and she co-founded the Refashion Lab to support a viable textile waste recycling system that creates jobs, reduces textile land to landfill, and creates awareness about circular design and conscious consumption. Good afternoon, Jackie. And then lastly, but certainly not least, we have Ulondega Mahlanza Langa. She is a young leader in the shaping of sustainable business practices and transformation in the mining sector. She works as a sustainability disclosures and reporting specialist at Anglo American, where her responsibilities include the delivery of the group's sustainability report and the coordination of annual submissions to external ESG rankings and ratings agencies. Londeka holds both the master's degree from the University of Cape Town and a master's in society and environmental governance from the University of Oxford. She is an alumnus of the UN SDG Innovator Program, a Women in Mining Steering Committee member, and a passionate advocate for ensuring that mining activities benefit local communities during and post-life of asset. Hi, Londeka. So we've got an esteemed panel, and we'll be having thorough engagements around the creative culture, but also scaling for circular solutions. So before we get into the serious stuff, I want to sort of lighten the mood a bit, and please remember that this will be interactive. So make sure that you also are jotting down some of your questions as they come from answers from our panelists. I want to ask you, ladies, it's a beautiful, sunny Friday in Johannesburg. If you were to describe yourself as a fruit, Mo, what type of fruit would you describe yourself as, and why?
I'm probably a pineapple. Hello, everybody. I'm a pineapple, rough on the outside and very sweet on the inside.
Nice. And you wear a crown.
And I wear a crown.
Lovely. Jackie, what fruit would you describe yourself as?
I think an apricot.
Oh,
a little bit soft on the outside and hard on the inside.
She may be on mute.
Jackie, we can't seem to hear you.
No, I'm not on mute. I'm unmuted.
Oh, there you are. It's just a bit faint, I think.
Did you hear me?
Yes, much better.
Okay. Did you hear what I said? I said I'm an apricot.
Why an apricot?
I think I look a little bit like an apricot, and soft on the outside and hard on the inside.
Okay. And sweet. Sweet and sour. Londega?
I think I'm an apple, but you know those crispy, crunchy apples?
Okay.
So I'm feeling good today. It's a Friday, so I'm feeling like a crispy, crunchy, red apple.
Okay. We've got a nice fruit salad going around, so I like that.
Yeah.
You know, the Goethe Institute is so deliberate about having the Sustainable Together talks in grounding it for circular solutions, but also different industries coming to the fore to have very important discussions on the creative sector, but also knowledge production. And I think in grounding this topic around circular solutions, but also understanding the context in which we're operating in the So Creative Summit, it's important to also understand the role of organizations in creative culture. And I want to kick it off with you, Mo, and ask, how can organizations embrace circular economy principles in their day-to-day management?
Okay, thank you so much for that. For those of you who don't know, MoScript is actually a manufacturing company and we're based out in Pretoria. I started the business with my sister Michelle. And our mandate is actually making sustainable products from sustainable material. One of the products that we make is actually from recycled PVC plastics, which we collect from landfills and construction sites. And these baskets that we make have really taken over the retail space in terms of homeware. And we sell them in several retailers, Mr. Price Home, At Home, and we also ship them internationally, Crate and Barrel in the USA and Canada. And how we basically work is that we, first of all, are a sustainable company. We pride ourselves in making sustainable products. Each and every product that we made is either made from recycled material or non-invasive material to the environment. So when you speak about what are some of the things that we can do in our day-to-day, that's exactly what we do. And above and beyond the products that we make sure even with the packaging that we use, that is from recycled material. We used to use plastic tape to cover our packaging, and now we've gone away with that, and we're now using recycled paper for our tapes. And also working in the community. So we are from Pretoria. Our manufacturing site is in Pretoria.
Nice.
And we supply to stores in, locally here at home. So instead of these stores buying similar products internationally in Asia and in other markets, we're trading here locally.
And I think that local value chain also taps into the fact that it's products that are accessible to the South African market, but
Yes.
also from an international scale, you can also tap into that. Jackie, why is creativity important when we talk about sustainability? Like, if we want to discuss and unpack sustainability, why is creativity important?
I think from our perspective at Twig, I mean, we all deal and hear. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, you've just been very quiet. We're all dealing with hard facts and we read about science, but I don't believe that has impact on people's behavior. I think we all need something much more tangible and emotional to help shift behavior. And I think that's where the creative economy plays a massive role, is changing culture. I mean, we've been living in a very hyper-consumptive capitalist system for quite a long time that has kind of embedded, our values are now aligned with those systems which are terribly unsustainable, and it takes a lot of effort to change a culture. And I think that's what we're all doing in the creative economy, is influencing behavior positively through the work that we do, whether it's music, whether it's fine art, whether it's the media. Yeah, I think it's a big role we play in facing a future that's so uncertain, and also preparing for an uncertain future, as well as changing behavior to try and mitigate the challenges that we involved with. I mean, it's a very hard role we play. It's a very important role.
I think it's also sometimes specific to industries, no? And Londek, I want to come to you. You obviously come from an industry that is highly industrialized, but also hard in terms of output. So how would you sort of zone in your creative space in the organization that you work on and some of your activities in the mining sector?
Yeah, I think it's such an exciting experience for me to be in a summit like this today, because there's usually this binary around, creatives are one thing, technocrats are another, and there's no intersection where I think that a lot of the solutions that we are driving towards, particularly in the mining sector, are vested on creative ideas. So as we push forward to reimagining what mining can look like and creating a more sustainable business, our solutions will come out of creative technologies. And a lot of this is on how we start to change how we run the business, right? So we no longer want to be in this sort of linear business model where we're extracting, producing, and simply disposing of our products. We really want to create a full value chain where we understand where the things we produce are going. And we also want to change the way we process minerals and metals to be more conscious of the environment. So reducing the amount of water that goes into processing, reducing the amount of energy that we use in our processing plants. And in turn, thinking of a post-mine future that is working in a regenerative state. So we don't only want to think about the environment once the mine is closed. We want to be thinking about the environment now and finding solutions for rehabilitation now. And one of the exciting projects on a processing level is on bulk ore sorting. So mining is a super extractive industry, and we take out a lot from the earth that actually ends up as waste, because not all of it can be processed. But through smart technologies like bulk ore sorting, we're able to reject waste earlier, so only taking what we need, and we're able to run processes at a smaller capacity from an infrastructure perspective, which directly means that we're using less energy, we're using less water, and that's a part of us integrating creative solutions for our own problems, but also starting to really think about circularity and how to lessen the impact that we're having on the environment.
I want to stay with you for a bit, because part of the extractive work that you're doing is also plowing into the environment and sort of having some sort of rebeneficiation aspect. What are some of the challenges that you've encountered in transitioning into a circular economy?
So many challenges. I think just thinking about circularity overall, two things that stick out to me as a challenge for transitioning. Firstly is regional differences. And secondly is trying to scale for all these circular solutions and ideas, right? Because let's be honest, scaling takes time, and scaling also it takes a lot of investment and it takes a lot of money. So on a regional differences perspective, yes, we can all look up, what the circular economy means and arrive at a good definition, but circularity in a low middle income country like South Africa means something totally different to a country like Germany, where the entire ecosystem in that country really supports this culture of circularity, even down to a domestic level, like waste collection, right? In South Africa, our problem is just getting our waste collected, right? Never mind trying to create an ecosystem that allows us to recycle all of this waste. So taking into consideration regional differences is important, and there are a lot of competing priorities in the South African context that I work in. So waste management is absolutely a priority, and there's a lot of best practice that we can learn from. But we also need to consider other priorities like basic services. So circularity in our mining context can mean infrastructure protection. So how do we make sure that water infrastructure is protected and such a basic resource is able to reach our host communities as an example. So that is circularity for us on a larger scale. And that is something difficult to do, because it's something that we need to do in conjunction with local government and local municipalities.
Yeah, I think even the aspect of host communities, right, and making sure that there's a synergy in your community and the people that you work alongside. And I think part of the work that Mo's Crip does is also tapping into the creative sector, but also some sort of skills development training. How do you find that synergy of being, one, a good corporate citizen, but also respecting the space and the communities that you find yourself in?
Well, first of all, most CRIP is because of the community. We find some of our customers actually calling us to recycle material. So we've got an ample of communities that have actually called us and said, hi, we've got pipes lying around. Do you want to use some of this?
Sure.
But over and above that, our artisans in Pretoria, 30% of them are from our community. And it's intertwined. I mean, training and actually getting these artisans to work is intertwined. It's one thing, because one of the things that we do is we don't look at an artisan that already knows how to make the product, but is the artisan creative enough and able to weave, a particular product? Then we invest into training the artisan and then keeping them, even after the projects are completed, they then walk out with a skill. So our community is very much involved, and we've seen how community has actually been able to drive growth in our company.
And ultimately become a partner, right? Because if they're saying to you, hey, we've got an additional waste, we've got PVC pipes here, can you assist us?
Yes,
and
collaboration.
That becomes part of your circularity model in many ways, right?
You got it, yes. And so in the same individual that gives the recycled material is the same individual that's going to attend our factory sale and consume our products.
Yeah, sure. Londega, you spoke about the issue around waste management and sustainability and how we plug into this. But actually, I want to ask Jackie this. How I think it's such an important component, because waste is such a huge part of our lives in the way we navigate life, but also managing it as responsible citizens before we are corporate citizens. And Jackie, I wonder, how do you think waste contributes to successful and sustainable business practices, particularly at Twig and in the fashion industry?
So we don't deal with waste personally, because we're a media organization, so we've got a light footprint as an organization. But where my understanding of the textile waste comes from is my research that I've done myself and alongside AFRI, or Erika de Greef, who is a co-founder of AFRI. But what we've discovered, and I think I'm sure my other panelists can have a bit different answers or better answers, but I think the real challenge is it's not commercially viable at the moment to beneficiate your waste. I've seen big organizations that are trying to do it, but in the textile industry, at the moment, it doesn't make commercial sense to upcycle and recycle waste, and that's why it's not being done. Obviously, there's a lot of really interesting things happening with designers who are upcycling things and creating beautiful collections. But if that had to happen at scale, it can't happen. It's not happening at scale because it doesn't make commercial sense for big organizations to do it. They're definitely creative. Even in huge big brands, but the textile to textile recycling solutions are not at scale yet. They're being tested. Some have failed. I think until policy is implemented, it's going to be a hard sell to get textile companies to recycle at scale, to be honest. We're seeing a lot of, you can tell, things get dumped in Africa. We're having huge problems in Kenya, huge problems in Uganda, huge problems in Accra. I've seen it in Harare, textile waste being dumped at the expense of local industry and local culture. It's a big problem. So it is a problem, and how do we solve it, and how do we make it commercially viable for organizations to take on that responsibility themselves without regulation? We're not seeing it happen at scale. Definitely not at scale.
I think a policy framework is always important when we talk about circularity, right? And I think from a theoretical standpoint, there have been gains made in as far as how we pivot and make sure that legislation also works in a circular economy. But Londega, to you obviously have oversight in terms of actual physical assets, right? That have a lifespan that's like 20, 30 years. And so what does perhaps describe the process of maintaining, but also understanding that there's a social responsibility and an ecological responsibility in maintaining those physical assets, even at end of life cycles?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because you're right, we do have a lot of physical assets. So outside of, corporate office buildings. We have infrastructure in remote areas where we operate. So on our mine sites, we've got buildings, we've got accommodation, we have machinery, we have huge process plants, we have huge transportation vehicles. So employing a circularity mindset in managing all of these assets responsibly, firstly, implores us to get the best value out of them while we have them.
Yeah.
So actually use them properly and use them in a way that allows us to use and maintain. So not just use when you have a problem with machinery, you throw it away. We are trying to embed a strong maintenance mindset in some of our physical assets. But the nature of the business is constantly transforming, right? And a big part of this transformation is to downsize. So we have a legacy of physical assets that we now need to come up with very creative solutions on what do we do with an old office building in downtown Joburg now that we have moved into a glossy office in Rosebank. So a lot of great ideas came out of that, and some peers in the audience might be aware of this, where our almost 100-year-old office building in downtown Joburg has now transformed into an institute that is focused on upskilling young people in the Johannesburg inner city. So that's one way of, yes, we have maximized full use and gained value from this asset, but we can now partner socially and responsibly with our host community in the inner city to actually transform this into something that will continue to generate value into the future. But thinking of the remote areas where we operate and the infrastructure there's a lot to envision in the mining sector around what we do with an old processing plant. And one of the solutions is transforming these into agricultural mills for product development. Some of our old infrastructure in remote areas is being transformed into training facilities and schools, and that's all about making sure that assets that we have continue to be of benefit socially, but also generate value into the future. And I do want to come back to the ecological point, because land itself is an asset, and mining companies have a lot of land on their books. So a part of being responsible with land use is, yes, finding good rehabilitation solutions, but it's also about changing the way that we mine so that we have a minimal impact. And rehabilitation needs to be happening in concurrence with our actual production life cycle. We can't wait until the end. And there are really amazing examples that are coming out of the sector where you have underground mines and you have entire agricultural farms happening above them, because this interaction is so well managed between actual mining operations and other land use capabilities. So, that is a part of employing a circular mindset, but also making sure that physical assets are used to their full capacity and value, and reimagining what to do with them when we're done with them, but also making sure that we're working with the land to make it viable for now and for the future.
Yeah. So a beautiful symbiosis in many ways.
Exactly.
Yeah, ina ete, I think it is. So Mo, I think in terms of your production and products, they're in people's homes. They're in hotels. People can actually hold and sort of make do with the product that you have and customize them. Do you have any, or perhaps give us examples of some sort of responsibility that you have for end of life cycle for those products, if people can keep them for a certain time, what's the responsibility that Mo's Crib has for products?
Yeah, and I'm glad that you asked that. One of the things that we pride ourselves in, especially with PVC, our PVC products, is that PVC is an indoor and outdoor product. You can have it inside your home in the wintertime with your firewood next to your fireplace.
Yeah.
And what's really nice about it is that on the summertime, you can actually just switch it up and use it outside, because it's an indoor-outdoor basket, which is very different to the traditional baskets that we know and love, which are made from ilala palm or made from grass. And so our product actually has a long lifespan and has probably a lifespan that's even longer than us.
Sure.
And the great thing also about our product is that you can actually return it back, and it can actually be regranulated to become something else, maybe go back to being a PVC that it initially was. And so essentially, that's what we pride ourselves in the fact that our PVC product has durability, it's long lasting, but then also other products that we manufacture. I mean, most Scrip prides itself in making sustainable products throughout, whether it's made from PVC or other types of material. And our grass products are biodegradable, and so each and every product that we make at Most Scrip, we pride ourselves in the fact that it's no harm to the environment. If anything, our PVC range is taking plastics from landfills and construction sites and turning it into a beautiful craft that is long lasting.
Yeah. And also, from a legacy standpoint, you can always point to it. Like, years will come, you can still point to say, I bought this in 2024, and here it is.
And that's what we're finding. We're finding customers that actually bought the product 7 years ago and are still using the product.
Sure. When we started off the discussion, I prefaced the discussion around the Sustainable Together series being anchored on enabling circular neighborhoods. And a key feature is also how we interact with various stakeholders, particularly communities and partnerships. And it's a concurrent theme that's been running throughout the series. Jackie, perhaps you could share with us, why is the role of communities important in the implementation of creative projects, but also sustainability?
Okay, so I think the idea of communities is we all need to be in a healthy community. And I think for me, when I think about communities and society, I'm thinking and trying to understand globalization. We've been globalizing the world for centuries, and I think we are faced now with the extreme results of globalization and how it's destroyed communities and societies in South Africa. I'm thinking about our context especially. And what does it mean to build healthy communities? And obviously that involves creating jobs, which is really important, creating dignified jobs, creating jobs that people enjoy doing. And I think collaborating across sectors, across businesses, across whether it's private business, NGOs, and partnering with government to unlock the opportunities and also to understand what's needed. Just hearing from Lundeka about what the mine's doing, that's just incredible. And from my perspective, working in a media organization, we need to partner. It's really important. We really need to partner with businesses to exist and to also better understand the challenges that are faced. Like I said earlier in my answer about the challenges that I understand, with retailers and fashion design or big fashion brands, I think smaller brands are much better equipped to deal with circularity. But the big ones, what are their challenges? Once we can understand the challenges, we can help find the solutions. And I think that, and the community is integral to that, because communities can, like what Mo is saying, is involving the communities as people who work in her organization, but also they understand the issues and what the impact of big business is on smaller communities. I think we really have to collaborate. I always say that SDG 17 is possibly the most important SDG of all of them, because without working together, we're not going to get anywhere.
Sure. And it's such an important grounding in this conversation, because collaboration becomes so important in solving inherent issues that we have in the country, right? This cross-pollination of ideas and from different industries. Londeka, you spoke about skills development and sort of job creation in the communities that you operate in, and then gave us an example of the old building that's in Johannesburg CBD. How do you sort of balance job creation, legislative obligations, and training in the work that you do? Because I think whether we like it or not, there has to be the synergy, right, that says we're plugging into training, but also we have to meet our mandate to the government. So how do you balance that in a circular manner?
Yeah, I think jobs are probably top of the agenda in any mining level engagement and conference, and I think just across across every corridor in South Africa, jobs are a big point of concern considering our current economic standing. So the mining industry is totally different today than what it was 50 years ago. I do think it will continue to change, and a part of that change means that they will no longer be as big as they are, and that means that even the jobs that exist on mining sites will not be as expansive as we know them today. That in itself is an evolution, it's changing. So when we think about job creation and the mining sector, we need to really start thinking beyond the mine itself. And a big part of this is around supporting diversifying economies.
Sure.
Because our suppliers can't be our suppliers alone. We need to be making sure that our suppliers are connected to other markets, because if the mine ceases to exist, those suppliers still need to be plugged into other customers that can still support their businesses. So a lot of effort is being poured into enterprise development in the mining space and supporting industries that have absolutely nothing to do with mining. I was talking to a friend earlier, and we're discussing how much investment in the mining sector is actually going into the hospitality industry. And that's because in the remote regions where we operate, in some areas, almost 50% of the local host community is young people, and it's young people who are unemployed and are looking for jobs. And not all of them will have a job on the mine. So if we are now investing some of our capital and our expenditure into the hospitality sector and making sure that that industry is thriving, that's a way of diversifying an economy outside of the mining scope. So at the moment, we're in partnership with Summit, which is a hospitality training institute. They're working with our enterprise development arm in our organization, Zimele, who is identifying young people in host communities who are interested in hospitality. So they get taken into this training program where they get certification, but a big piece of this is obviously job placement. So in partnership with Silver Sea Cruises, those young people who have undergone that training know that they can get placed in this booming cruise industry that is currently thriving all around the world. So thinking through how we capacitate other sectors that are beyond our own is a big way of making sure that as much as we want to invest and create jobs for mines, the reality is that we need to be thinking about what our local economies look like if we were not around. And that also kind of ties itself into supply chain and being very intentional about who our suppliers are. So there's no need for us to be working with a waste recycler in Pretoria or Johannesburg when we are mining sites in the Northern Cape, right? Sure. We need to be finding local industry and sectors that we can support, train, and upskill locally who can take care of some of our waste uptake. So creating an inclusive environment in terms of our procurement and also empowering other industries and sectors is a really big piece of us trying to manage job creation for ourselves, but also job creation off-site, which is really important.
Sure. And I think that local economy is it needs to be enabled, right? There needs to be a framework that is enabling for skills transfer, for job capacitation, for supplier development. And Mo, you work directly with artisans. Could you perhaps share with some of your insights in working with people in those local economies, how you source them, what engagements you do, and the type of training with your artisans?
Yeah, so at Moscrip, we value our artisans and also our employees, and that's why we've got a wellness initiative when we talk about making sure that there's a way in which we take care of our community. And we use our community to take care of our artisans as well. For example, in our wellness initiative, we've got a nurse that's in our community that comes into our workplace every month to come and see if our artisans are well and healthy. We give them financial literacy training to help them stretch their dollar and how to use their salaries. So it goes beyond just the baskets and training them to become artisans. It's also about who are they when they're not making baskets, and being able to give them a sense of being, giving them more than just the salary at the end of the month. And that's really how we'll be building an ecosystem around our community, really.
Sure. And in terms of sourcing, do you have specific criteria? Do they have to be local? Like, do you have a...
100%. So we're sourcing in Pretoria. There's a company called Sizabatu Pipes that actually we source from, and they're actually also a manufacturer of these pipes. And, the criteria is that they're local, and they're from South Africa, and they're pipes that are basically what we can actually manufacture.
Okay. So we have been talking about the intersection of communities, waste management, and also how we have factored in the creative sector in the spaces that we occupy. But I wonder if we can also just take a sort of bird's eye view and review the policy frameworks and the institutions that work around us to enable that type of environment. We know that they play a crucial role in making sure that there's a viable environment. Jackie, how have you managed to scale Twig in the context and current policy frameworks?
I think for Twig, we don't, the policy doesn't really apply to us in terms of manufacturing and circularity, because we're a media organization essentially that puts on events. But I think from, my knowledge and understanding of the clothing and textile industry is that there is no policy at the moment around end of life. So extended producer responsibility regulations don't apply to textiles like they do to packaging. And I think they, in EU, there's, and across the world, but especially in the EU, there are quite progressive regulations around textile end of life. And I think it's really, really important. And I think I think manufacturers should really be thinking about it seriously. Because it will eventually be implemented in South Africa, because especially if you're exporting, again, with regulations coming into play in other countries which are attractive for exporters from here, they will be penalized if they don't apply, if their manufacturing systems aren't compliant. So I think it's really, really important. Unfortunately, I wish it was voluntary. I wish companies could do it voluntary, but as I said earlier, it doesn't make commercial sense. It's not commercially. It's not an incentive to recycle textiles yet. But I think with a voluntary agreement, with policy frameworks, it would become imperative. And I think the more it's happening around the world, the closer it'll happen. The sooner it'll happen at home. And I just don't like the idea of having to penalize people for not doing something that's right for the planet and for people, because it's all right for people, because we need a healthy environment to be able to thrive. And waste, especially textile waste, all waste, but I'm talking about textile waste, is toxic. Most of it, 60% of it is plastic. It's got toxic dyes in it, so when it lands up in the environment where it shouldn't land up in, but a lot of it does, especially where there isn't good waste management systems in place, it is toxic, and it's toxic for communities who drink from rivers and who grow their food in soils that need to be, that end up having these toxins in them. So it's really, really important. And I don't like the idea of penalizing people through regulations, but if it doesn't happen because our capitalist system doesn't make it attractive and doesn't make it a commercially viable option, then regulations are important.
Thank you.
Yes. If I may, because I really like Jackie's point around, a lot of the sort of regulatory and framework discussions on the circular economy are not really affecting us here at home yet.
Yeah.
But I think as large industries, we are aware of this forthcoming regulation. So it does implore us to actually perform in a proactive manner to already ready ourselves for what's coming.
Yeah.
And I like specifically the regulation that's coming into fruition when it comes to the circular economy, because it's demanding us to actually understand our full value chain. It's demanding us to actually understand our waste streams properly, specifically in the mining sector. When I first joined as an environmental practitioner working on site, we couldn't even categorize our waste. We didn't know how much waste we were producing, weren't even sure about where it goes. And that's when we started embedding this vision of having a zero waste mine. And what does a zero waste mine look like? And a big part of that is to understand the full value chain, understanding our waste streams, finding partners to offtake some of our waste from our sites. And so, regulation is out there, but I don't think we can negate our responsibility to act responsibly, and it does implore us to start changing the way that we do business already before this actually hits our shores.
Yeah, and not necessarily use compliance as this albatross, but actually be good corporate citizens in the spaces that we occupy. So before I open up for questions, I have one last question for all three of you, but I'll start off with you, Mo. 3 recurring themes for the Sustainable Together talks thus far have been around resilience, indigenous language, as well as collaboration. Which of these themes do you think your organization or yourself personally embodies, and why?
I think definitely collaboration for us, because we're not only collaborating with the community, our artisans, our customers, we're also collaborating with the retailers. The big organizations are actually our biggest clients. We've got your Mr. Price, we've got your At Home, we've got international retailers that are collaborating with us, as well as the volunteers. Like I mentioned, we've got medical care assistants in our workplace, we've got teachers that are coming through to volunteer to help skill our artisans, and so it's a collaboration. I mean, resilience is also part of it. Being a small business, we're quite resilient, but I think we've been really fortunate enough to have a strong collaboration base.
Nice. Jackie, resilience, indigenous knowledge, or collaboration for you?
Wow. I think personally, we've had to build resilience because we're doing a very unusual we're practicing media in a very unusual way, and it's hard to be resilient in a failing media landscape. So personally, I've had to build resilience. It's not easy. But I think in terms of our content and our what we do, I think indigenous knowledge is really important to us because we're very, very interested in what circularity and sustainability means for Africa and South Africa. It's not as somebody said earlier, we're not cookie cutting solutions from the global north. We're learning from what's happening in Africa. And a lot of it is indigenous to communities on the continent, which is really exciting. So we're trying to find those out and learn about them and share those stories as much as we can. And then, as I said earlier, collaborating with our partners, with fellow media organizations, with brands, with designers, we wouldn't have a platform. So I think those are all very meaningful words and very meaningful terms to be thinking about right now. So
Wonderful. Rondega?
Yeah, I mean, I just can't agree enough with the collaboration piece. It's fundamental to any success we can dream of attaining when it comes to embedding circular approaches and how we do business. So collaboration is key, but resilience too, because I do think some of the most high impact scaling solutions for circularity in the mining sector do take time. Some of the things that we're managing to do now is research that has been 15 years in the making, because when you want to scale for impact, you want to make sure that you are finding the best value solution for your specific waste product, right? You don't want to do something temporary because you're sort of rushing for an output. You really want to do something that you know will attain the best value, and sometimes it takes time and research to land on that. So it is about resilience, but it is about collaboration, certainly.
Yeah, so all three essentially, right? All three. So in the spirit of scaling circular solutions and collaboration, we'd like to open up the floor for questions, comments, thoughts. Let's hear what you guys have to say. I think the question over there.
Thank you so much. This is such an amazing conversation, and I'm deeply inspired. And by the way, you're not alone. I'm from Pretoria as well. So.
Hi there.
I just want to comment about two things, secular economy, and also I want to discuss about another context that Jackie has definitely addressed. It's a question that I've been asking myself, policies and narrative and regulation around sustainability and waste management, especially as a fashion designer. I don't know where this context is coming from, and most of the time I feel like it's coming from the Western community, to a point whereby there are certain things that we can't use anymore, but they have benefited out of them before us trying to tap into it. Typical example, we can't use fur anymore. We can't use crocodile skin anymore. But if you look at the legacy of their economy, it was based on that. That becomes an issue. I mean, if right now is there any amount of money that they need to pay as a form of a tax, as a form of regulations to say, okay, since we're banning this, but these companies have been benefiting, what must they do? Should they pay? Where's Africa playing that role into that cancellation of other ideas to use and everything? So to add on that as well, I'm concerned about Pampers, like how baby Pampers are running around as a waste management. Sooner or later, they will say Pampers are no longer being used anymore. And those companies will come with innovative ideas. But when we try to come with our own Pampers, it's no longer in the market anymore, right? That is another concern. And I'm asking myself where Africa is playing that role in decision-making of such things. Typical example, we are suffering with coal right now. We don't have to use coal. We have to use renewable energy. But they've been developing renewable energy before us. Yeah. So now we have enough coal to use, but we definitely can use. So who's who? America can, if we against that, we are no longer going to be funded by the DBSA and other countries. The other thing to add, the secular economy, I'm very inspired about it. I started a brand called Melanin and Rose International. It's a luxury women's wear brand. With it, it started in 2013, and we developed another idea by diversifying the brand in a form of scaling. As you spoke about, scale takes time and a lot of money. We went to develop another company called Melanin Voyage, Melanin Events, and we have learned so much out of it. Now the fashion house is suffering financially as a couture brand. But on the other side, with the Melanin Voyage, where we use it for luxury traveling, we took the money, reinvested into the Melanin fashion house. And right now, we're going to Paris in 2 weeks from now. The money, we're using it in order for us to go there. So it's more inspiring to learn about the sustainability, the responsibility, the community, how the community engage into all these things. And for that, I'm very inspired about this program at the moment.
Thank you. I think we'll take one more, and then we'll get responses from the panel.
Good afternoon. So when it comes to a lot of the sustainability panels that I've been in, I've always noticed this normally women largely, and growing up in an African home with a mom like mine, is always recycling the leftovers or the margarine or whatever it is. So I just want to know, is it a coincidence when it comes to circular economy that it's the women who are involved? Or is this a part where we need to start getting women in more leadership roles from a community level, policy level, especially in parliament? Is it something that is a blind spot for us as gents, or is it just a coincidence that when it comes to sustainability and circular economy, that it's ladies?
I like that. I'm going to read one more that came from Slido. It says, policy plays such a big role, and as Jackie mentioned, its knock-off effect with fashion productions. I have a broad question for all the panelists around the idea of greenwashing. Policy regulations drives corporate social responsibility, but how is greenwashing affecting the journey to circular and zero waste economy structures? So I think let's start off with your question. Jackie, I don't know if you got the gist, or do you want a quick summary on the first question?
A quick summary, please.
So it spoke to the influence of the West in as far as the type of resources that we use. The gentleman is in the fashion industry and also talked about the usage of certain materials like fur having an impact on our sort of circularity, and what your thoughts are on that.
There was a big question, and I think that there are two things I'd like to say to that. Is that, I think for many, I think the West has seen Africa as a marketplace for a lot of product that is no longer popular. So you're talking about Pampers. I would imagine, I mean, I haven't had a child in Germany, but I would imagine that there's a big movement in Germany for not using Pampers and for going back to using, their bamboo rewashable nappies. But obviously they come at a price, and, while they, as they scale and become cheaper, we're still using Pampers. And there is no solution to recycling them. They're a big problem in the landfill and in the environment. So we've just got to be mindful of that. We're seen as a marketplace because we've growing economy, growing population, not necessarily all different things in different countries. I'm talking in broad strokes here. But we just got to be mindful of that and not fall into the trap of just blindly purchasing and consuming stuff that is not sustainable.
Sure.
Then the other thing that we really have to find solutions that are appropriate for our contexts, and I think that we shouldn't be recycling and creating solutions for other ways. We should be looking at our own problems and recycling and finding solutions for what our issues are here. We're by localizing economies, we can find solutions more easily. So those are just the two comments I'd make in response to that. Yeah.
Thanks, Jackie. And then to my fellow in real life panelists, there was a comment from the brother over there around circular and sustainability discussions sort of being feminized. What are your thoughts? I mean, we're all women panel, so.
I think it's true. We're also seeing the same with our customers as well. 95% of our consumers are female. And I think maybe it means that we're more conscious than anything. And we are really great leaders. I think we're really conscious, and especially in the way that most crippers run. You can see that it's women-led.
Yeah.
But I think that I've come from a household with a mom and a dad. And I've seen my mom really inspire me to be the person that I am today, and which is why I do the things that I do. But I think that it's more consciousness. I think females are more conscious than anything else.
Okay, super.
I mean, just a final contribution to that piece. There definitely is a relationship between the way that women lead and sustainability. And the figures in this panel speaks for itself. Most chief sustainability officers in all FTSE companies are women. And I do think that in the way that we lead, we do have a more conscious take to business strategy, and we do employ from sort of even a domestic mindset, and the way that we interact, employ a circular framing in terms of how we look at issues. So there's definitely a relationship there, and the numbers speak for themselves, so I'd echo that. There's no lie.
Numbers don't lie. I'm going to sneak in one last question. I know we're the panel that's standing between you and your lunch. But we've got an audience question, perhaps.
Yes.
Short and sweet, please.
Yes,
short
I'll
and
keep
sweet.
it short and, no, thank you. Okay, but I need to be audible still. Yeah, no, I do agree that women need to play a more leadership role in all spaces. And it is a general blind sighting in our world that women are not given the rightful space. My question, the land rehabilitation from the mining perspective, working with communities in Soweto and coming from Soweto, I just want to know if you can briefly tell us if there is hope, because we have all this land that is waste and poisonous. Is there hope for that space to be used other than music videos by our gospel artists, And then in terms of, as an organization, TEDCOSA, we lobby, we advocate, and we find that everything, looking at the panel, the content, everything goes back to education. And the level and the standard of education in our country basically means we are digging a hole where we're going to bury our future. So can organizations like yourselves, the mining sector, and Bojeki and the media, help us to advocate for a better education system, better standards, rather than a situation where, things are just going to get worse. But I will leave it at that. Thank you.
Thanks. Nondega, do you want to give it a stab?
as a quick response, there's hope. There's definitely hope. And it sort of circles back to my point around scaling for high impact solutions takes time, but there's so much research that's currently going into nature-based solutions for old mining sites. And a part of it is using, microbes to take out acid from old mining areas, using mining waste to create fertilizer compost that actually turns topsoil into the kind of soil that is more productive for other sectors like agriculture. So there's hope. There's hope. There's hope. I wish I had more time to share all of this with you. And you're right. We do need to play a more prominent role in the education environment. I think that's a part of the collaboration piece where we would love an opportunity to speak to DBE about the exciting innovations that we could employ for changing curriculum to be more interesting and engaging, to address some of the problems that you've just pointed out right now. So no, I don't think the site in Soweto will be a gospel video shooting venue forever. There is hope, and there is transformative solutions for those kind of problems that are coming out of industry.
Thanks, Londega. Thank you so much, everyone, and that's how we wrap it up. A huge thank you for all your engagements and interactions. And of course, thank you to the Goethe Institute for the Sustainable Together series. The final iteration will be taking place on the 26th of May, still at Victoria Roads, so make sure you do come and join us. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Londega. Thank you, Mo, for fruitful engagements and also just grounding us in the space of a So Creative Summit in understanding the different scaling solutions. So a big thank you to everyone.
Thank you.